Y.S. McCarthy. Why do you think most animation artists are so unsettlingly dissatisfied with their creation slash produced work? My observation leads me to believe the studios know this and use it to their advantage to keep artists working an insane amount of their lives. Well, that second part, I don't know. I'm a studio owner, and I hope we're not manipulating people's insecurities. No idea if that's true of other places, but I would really hope that that isn't the attitude. There's a fun poster or image in the studio I noticed the other day because we recently renovated and people hung up stuff on the walls, and was a really nice cartoon kind of saying that this idea that suffering um, uh, plus inspiration equals great art, and then another idea that just like hard work and being hungry makes great art, and then it's like no, a happy environment, happy artist makes great art. And I think that's what I would believe, that I don't think you need to be dissatisfied and unhappy all the time. I think if you're there's a kind of a comfortable edge that I like to be against, like where I know I've done my best, even if it's not where I'd like to be, but I know I'm on a journey to where I want to be. And I certainly feel as a
Yep.
draftsperson that I think I draw less stinkers now. Like I draw less bad drawings now. I'm probably could still very capable of making a bad movie, but in terms of just drawing, I don't know if I'm unsettlingly dissatisfied, and I wonder if people in general who are that way, it's deeper than it's an insecurity in themselves or something. What do you think? Is it something
Right.
maybe I identified with that a lot
Well,
more when I was younger? I was pretty hard on myself when I was younger, and I think you get to a certain age where
uh,
you know, are you are
right.
you are you
Well,
definitely dissatisfied
I
with
have a bit
your
of
work?
a different answer to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a bit of a different answer. I can't speak to animation, except that I know from the outside that animation is a very different world from illustration.
Mm,
Um, for one thing, the legal contracts that you sign to be an animator are totally different than the ones that you sign to do an illustration gig. It's a whole different professional arrangement. It's a different working world.
mm,
So I can't speak to that part of it.
mm.
But as far as dissatisfaction is concerned, I think if you're dissatisfied in life, if you're talking about just generally being dissatisfied, then I would just co-sign everything you just said. If you're talking specifically about dissatisfied with your work, then my answer is different. I would say that dissatisfaction is absolutely the nature of the beast. That I would give a similar answer to one I gave to a student once who I taught. I don't do it anymore, but I used to teach illustration classes, which were really quite rudimentary. It was a lot about the basics. And one student was having a lot of angst about the work she was making and said something to the effect of like, when am I going to get to the point where what I see on my head comes out on the page? And I told her, never. You will never get to the point where this is the same as that. It doesn't happen because this is a different world. What your mind sees and what you create on the page are two separate things. And you have to learn to mediate between the two. And don't go into doing art, be it animation or illustration, whatever, believing that you will get to the point one day where everything just works, because it doesn't happen. I can only imagine how much of a fight it is to get a film from here onto the screen. And I call it a fight, and maybe for some people that's the wrong word to use, but there's no question that it's a lot of problem solving.
I'm
It's
not.
a lot of running into things that you need to contend with. Whether you think of it as fighting or contending, I don't know. But for me, the dissatisfaction, the things in the last piece I did that I couldn't address, or that it didn't do, that I want to do in the next one, that's what keeps me going to the next piece. Like that's pulling me forward
Yeah.
every day, and I love it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So to a certain extent, understand that like a certain amount of disquiet is part, I mean, it's part of life generally, but
Yeah.
it's part of bringing things into the world. And don't expect to be just happy with all your stuff. and learn to recognize your worst work. Like if you're putting a portfolio into the world, one of the biggest skills you need to have is to recognize out of all, 15 pictures you've got on your website, which one's the worst. It doesn't mean it's actually bad, but compared to all the other ones, which one's the weakest?
Yeah.
Because that's the one that an art director or an art buyer is going to remember for sure, the weakest one. And if you can go through your career gradually whittling away that bottom tier of your portfolio, you're just going to keep getting better and better and better and better and better and better. As for like being taken advantage of by studios, I have no idea. I'm not in a position to do that. So
taking advantage of Peter all this time. No, but I think it has opened up a thing in my brain that is probably worth sharing, is that animation for me is a co-creation. So what I try and work on from one movie to the next is sometimes it's human skills, like my soft skills, how well I can communicate, because a lot of that, but I don't have a perfect movie in my head that I'm just trying to get a load of wrists to help me make. Everyone who worked on it is a collab, like a filmmaker with me, and they're bringing something to it. And so I'm always happy with it at the end when I feel like it's been a productive collaboration. And what I might be unhappy with is where I think I might have failed either in communication, or maybe like in Secret of Kells, I felt I learned a lot about tone. I felt that the tone of that movie changed a bit too much, maybe more than I would have liked when I look back on it. And that's what I tried to work on being more consistent with. But that's a very big, broad thing that has a lot of variables and a lot of factors that change that. So any dissatisfaction I had was with my own work, and I was usually just inordinately proud of the fact that all these other talented people had come together to help me make a movie, and I was never dissatisfied with their work. I mean, how dare I? They've all given 110%. So it's just myself. But yeah, as an individual artist, as an animator, for example, or as a now I'm working on painting. Of course, every painting I do, I can see, oh man, I have to work on whatever for you. I need to work better on contrast. I need to work better on my hands, I've got knees. I've pinned up knees. I was frustrated with my knees, so I've been really focused on getting my anatomy right on knees so that I have a shorthand when I'm drawing quickly and not fluffing it. So you're always looking at what's not great. But I am honest to say, after putting 7 hard months into anatomy, more satisfied with my drawings now than I was at the beginning, and I'd be worried if I wasn't. That's not to say I think I'm perfect. Yeah, it's not to say I think I'm perfect. So, anyway,
I mean,
very different, different people, I think. Yeah.